Aboard the Cloverfield space station, a group of international scientists embarks on a desperate mission to solve Earth's energy crisis. The world is on the brink of war, and the experimental Shepard particle accelerator is humanity's last hope. As the film opens, we are introduced to Ava Hamilton, a British scientist who carries a heavy personal burden. Her family was torn apart by the energy crisis ravaging Earth. She dreamt of a past conversation in which she and her husband, Michael, debated whether she should leave for the mission, which could take months or even years. Ultimately, duty called, and she boarded the space station alongside a diverse crew. German physicist Schmidt, American Commander Keel, Brazilian medical officer Monk, Irish technician Mundy, Chinese engineer Tam, and Russian scientist Volkov. The team's objective is to activate the particle accelerator, a device with the potential to generate infinite energy and save the planet. Today, when she wakes up, she immediately calls her husband. It is revealed that only 3 attempts remain, and that the fuel supply is insufficient. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the situation worsens as tensions escalate. Countries grow impatient after 2 years of waiting for the mission's success. Michael explains that Russia is threatening a large-scale invasion, while the United States, Germany, and India stand ready to respond. However, their conversation is abruptly cut off due to a weak connection. Seeking comfort, she then watches an old video of her husband and their children, trying to reassure herself that everything will be fine. She joins the rest of the crew in the control room. Tension crackles in the air. Tam and Schmidt argue over the latest diagnostics. Something is interfering with the accelerator's stabilization. Keel tries to maintain order, but a scuffle breaks out. Schmidt strikes directly with his right, but Volkov shoves him against the wall. Fortunately, Keel and Mundy intervene quickly and restore calm by subduing them. After numerous failed attempts over the course of 2 years, the crew prepare for another one, but it also ended in failure. It was the 48th. The next day, Monk watches a program in which a prominent scientist explains that the Cloverfield's mission is humanity's last hope to resolve the escalating global energy crisis, but it comes with immense risks. The Shepard particle accelerator carries the potential to destabilize the very fabric of reality. Scientists feared that its activation could tear open space-time, causing unpredictable consequences that on Earth more and more scientists are questioning the basis and dangers of such a project. Back in the control room, the crew calibrates the Shepard and says a brief prayer before activating the next fire test. After 650 days today, the crew finally achieves ignition. The Shepard accelerator hums to life. Cheers erupts as they have positive energy flow for the first time after 49 attempts. But in an instant, catastrophe strikes. The station experiences a violent power surge that reverses gravity and causes a massive fire. The group rushes to put out the fire in the engine room. And when calm returns, the Earth, visible through the observation windows, vanishes. Confusion turns to horror as the crew scrambles to understand what happened. Communications with mission control are severed, leaving them stranded in space with no apparent way home. After a discussion, they decide to organize themselves to repair the damage. Keel declares that for now their survival is the priority. Ava and Volkov find themselves in the heart room and realize that crucial components of the ship have vanished, including the gyroscope, which is essential for navigation. Volkov begins to have headaches when they are suddenly interrupted by a noise so loud that it resonates throughout the spaceship. The crew starts looking everywhere to find the monster or to figure if it actually is. They discover an unexplainable occurrence. A woman named Mina Jensen is found, embedded inside the walls of the ship, screaming in agony. Panicked, Schmidt says that they should not touch it, while Ava says that they should get her out of there. Either way, they end up getting her out of there rather than letting her die, only to realize she knows Ava by her name, yet they have no idea who she is. Even more disturbingly, she claims to have always been part of the crew. The station begins exhibiting bizarre phenomena. Meanwhile, growing increasingly paranoid, Volkov uses a 3D printer to create a revolver. Determined to confront Schmidt, he storms in the compartment while they are busy working and holds Tam and Schmidt at gunpoint, accusing Schmidt of being an infiltrator. However, before he can push further, he is suddenly seized by a violent seizure. The crew take him to the infirmary to give him emergency care, but Volkov convulses violently before his body grotesquely swells and explodes, scattering worms that had been stored in the lab. Afterwards, Jensen, recovering from her injuries, warns Ava that the accelerator has not only transported them to another dimension, but has also merged realities in unpredictable ways. Elsewhere in the space station, Tam inspects the station's water system that was affected due to anomalies. Before anyone can figure out a solution, tragedy strikes again. Tam is alone in a chamber when the room inexplicably floods. The doors refuse to open, trapping her inside. The team scrambles to rescue her. Water continues to rise as she desperately pounds on the glass, trying to escape while her crewmates work frantically to override the doors. She pounds against the walls before drowning in seconds as the freezing water overtakes her after the implosion. Now that they lost their engineer, Commander Keel says that this dimension is trying to eat them. Ava suggests freeing Mina. Ava also explains to Keel that she wants to stay in this reality because, in this version of Earth, her children could still be alive. She sees this as a second chance to be with them, something she lost in her own world. Keel, however, reminds her that this isn't truly her life. It belongs to another version of her, and staying would mean taking someone else's place. He urges her to think beyond her personal loss and consider the consequences of her actions. Ava realizes he's right, but she has already made her decision. With the damage the ship suffered after the fire and Tam's death, the oxygen reserves have been reduced to just 2 hours. The crew gathers, and Mundy devises a plan. He explains that by detaching the non-essential compartments of the ship, they can redistribute the oxygen supply to the remaining sections. As for the remaining fuel reserves, they should be enough for a final thrust, allowing them to return to their dimension. The last of their fire reserves will be used to initiate their descent back to Earth. Mundy immediately sets to work, securing the oxygen reserves. But as he does, another strange phenomenon occurs. The ship itself seems to come alive, viscous substance almost like the symbiotic creatures from the Spider-Verse films. The substance engulfs Mundy, trapping him in its grip. His screams echo through the corridors as the black mass crushes him. At the same moment, a sudden explosion tears apart part of the ship's outer structure, sending debris flying into space. The wings of the station are destroyed, worsening their predicament. With the ship now tilting at an 18-degree angle and navigation becoming nearly impossible, they are left with no choice but to detach the damaged section manually. Keel, Ava, and Monk take on the dangerous task, making their way through the flickering corridors of the failing station. As they work, desperation sets in as Monk is barely killed. Keel, determined to give the others a chance, makes a fateful decision. He volunteers to manually eject the faulty section, knowing that doing so will mean his own death. Ava and Monk try to stop him, but Keel locks himself inside the detachment chamber. He gives one final word to Ava before initiating the separation, ejecting himself along with the damaged section into the cold void of space. His sacrifice stabilizes the ship, but the crew is left in shock. Suspicion turns to horror when she knocks out Mina. Her true goal is to ensure that a Shepard never returns to her original Earth, securing a future for her own timeline. Before Monks can figure out, Mina approaches him and shoots. He collapses, blood spreading across. Mina then leaves to get rid of Schmidt. She finds him and shoots him. Ava intervenes, but Mina is relentless. A brutal fight erupts between Schmidt and Mina. She moves with ferocity, bullet wounded. Schmidt is overwhelmed that she shoots him for the second time, leaving him for dead and turning her attention to Ava. The two women engage in a desperate struggle. Finally, Ava gains the upper hand, managing to subdue Mina just long enough to grab the nearby weapon. Mina lunges at her again, but Ava fires on the station window. And of course the window breaks, siphoning Mina. Ava escapes the room and then locks it as Mina is about to be ejected. She dies, her body drifting in zero gravity for a moment. Now the last survivor, Ava realizes that she has one final mission. She records a message to her counterpart in this reality, warning her of the dangers that lie ahead. If the cycle continues, more disasters will unfold. She sends the transmission, hoping that her alternate self will receive it in time. With the ship barely holding together, Ava and Schmidt make their final preparations, setting the station's course for Earth. In a desperate attempt to undo the damage, Ava and Schmidt manage to fire the Shepard accelerator one last time. A final violent energy surge ripes throughout the station, stabilizing their reality and finally revealing Earth. The overload worked. The overload worked, and all communications with Earth restored immediately. In a final attempt, they activate the Shepherd, producing infinite green energy. Relief is written all over their faces as they have just successfully completed their mission. Back on Earth, Michael gets a call of government officer, explaining that they have successfully established contact with the station in Ava. Michael becomes angry when learns that they are about to return to Earth. He responds to tell them not to land. The world they are returning to is no longer the one they left. As their pod enters Earth's atmosphere, a massive monster emerges from the mist and lets out a deafening roar.